Have you ever had your CEO swoop in with a great idea or a big customer commitment and completely derail your product roadmap? Well, then you're going to want to watch this episode of Fearless Product Leadership. In it, we're going to hear from not 5, but 6 experienced product leaders, and they're going to share exactly how they recommend you say no to the CEO. In it, we're going to hear their very specific stories and recommended tactics for how you can deal with things like shiny object syndrome, a big customer promise, and how you can expose the practicalities of opportunity cost if we were to say yes instead of no to the CEO's request. These are the product leaders that we're going to be speaking with today. You can get more information on their background by watching their bio videos using the links below.
So saying no to the CEO is hard. I guess I'll start by talking about when I ran product. And I did this, reporting to 3 different CEOs. And most of the time when I wanted to go against the CEO or say no. I mean, it's a delicate balance, right? There are always ideas. He or she, CEO, will come up with 10 things a day and they probably send 3 your way. And so you have to pick and choose what you can actually say no to versus what's worth exploring. But generally speaking, when I'm saying no, it's because the idea really doesn't fit in for 2 reasons. 1, it either doesn't align with our user or the user problem we're solving, or 2, it doesn't fit in strategically. And so if it doesn't really fit either of those, I think you have to just try it and see if it works and find a way to rapidly iterate or prototype or test out what's possible. I think of different features that would come up at Hotel Tonight around things adjacent to doing a hotel booking, which wasn't part of our strategy, but people would say, wouldn't it be cool if? Well, I don't have a lot of time in the roadmap for wouldn't it be cool if, or I'd be happy to do wouldn't it be cool if I could get 10 engineers to work on cool if, but that doesn't really exist. So I think the biggest thing you can do is just set out your criteria for all ideas. And it's not just the CEO's idea. The CEO is treated just like everybody else in the organization. And certainly as the head of product, you get to say no more than you get to say yes, which is a tough part of the job, but I think it's an important part of the job. That said, now that I'm CEO, I have a totally different perspective. I still think my answer was the right one. And I still think that I want my head of product to say, no, Amanda, that doesn't fit with our strategy, or no, that doesn't align with what our users want. I just came out of a meeting actually where we were talking about a new bookmarking feature here at Rabbit. And I had, wouldn't it be cool if it did this thing that solved all these problems around bookmarking all of your content across different services. And credit to my designer who looked at me and said, yeah, that would be cool, but that's not what we're trying to solve with this feature. And I was like, damn, that hurts. But it's absolutely the right answer. So aligning with the strategy and knowing the user. And I think if you can bring that both in terms of data as well as kind of words or kind of a story about your features that you are building versus what you're not building, I think it'll help you say no to the CEO.
As a product leader, you're going to have to know how and when to say no to the CEO. And I've had a few opportunities to do that. I don't know if they're good opportunities, but it has happened. The story I'd like to share with you is one of building out our API ecosystem with our partners. So the team had built out what I'd call an MVP or prototype for what an API that did what you'd call a response function would look like. And we were able to get some of our big clients on it. We had 3 really big clients on this MVP. We had also onboarded a partner who was using the API to serve these 3 clients. Over time, we realized that what we had was actually really, it was going to be a big deal for our clients, and there was going to be heavy adoption. However, the architecture we used to build it wasn't the right one. So we knew we needed to really build this and build out the scaffolding for this and really ensure that it would be reliable and extensible in the long run. So we moved on and decided we're going to do the true version, the new version of the API. Our partner was excited about the opportunity and was willing and ready to start selling on this API. And they were a very important partner to us. My CEO got a call from the CEO of that company, as well as some of our biggest clients, asking for us to open and extend the ability for this partner to make available this API or the application that used the API to them. This would have made money for us and for the partner. It was fantastic. But the demand also meant that we would be tasking what I call our MVP API, and it wasn't the right thing to do. So our CSAT would have gone up. My team would have spent a lot of time onboarding new clients. It was the wrong decision. So just spent some time with my CEO, talked him through it, and he got it. However, he got more calls from our clients as well as the CEO of the partner, and put a lot more pressure. And it's just having him see the data of how long it takes to onboard on a prototype API, as well as the cost, particularly the opportunity cost of building the future thing. It took a little bit of time helping him see it, but he got it eventually and was able to come around and give us the time necessary to build an API. Now we have 3 vendors onboarded and can serve many more clients in a more reliable, stable way. So that's my story of saying no.
Aside from the time where I told the CEO in front of the entire building that there are 3 North Stars, another example is, one of the things that CEOs are really good at typically is having a strong vision. And part of having a strong vision is seeing the connections between all things. And so oftentimes there's kind of a shiny object thing that occurs, like, oh, I went to this conference and I heard about X, or I read this article, and why aren't we doing this? My answer to the shiny object and my no back to the CEO is always a yes. Absolutely, I'd love to do that. All I need is 12 people, and we'll get you that shiny object. And usually the ask for resources is the thing that gets the CEO to agree. Oh yeah, no is probably the right answer because I'm not going to give you 12 people. Now, oftentimes you'll get pushback saying, well, why can't we just have the existing people do that? Well, these are all the priorities that we've already kind of set up. So, if you'd like to say no to one of those, I'm happy to say yes. So always trade off and make available the ability for your CEO to, explore something new. That's completely fine. But they have to say no to something else, or they have to say yes to it.
Managing expectations is hard on any day. It is insanely hard when you're talking about a CEO, because the way CEOs become CEOs is they have unrealistic goals and expectations, and they can get everybody rallied around this is the right thing to do. So they have 2 things usually. Number one is an ability to ignore reality in order to get everybody rallied around a goal to actually move a huge ship and get everybody aligned on having to go figure something out, as well as they aren't in the details. If they were in the details and understood all the constraints, then they wouldn't be doing their job, they'd be doing your job. So when you find a CEO who has unrealistic expectations, which to be clear, they always do, number one, don't be surprised. And number 2, help them understand what is it about their expectations that is in fact unreasonable. I had one situation where, we have been working on this one initiative that I won't name for probably 2 years. And we've been talking about it for 3, we've been working on it for 2, we've been making significant investments, but all along I've been saying, look, this is hard. And this is something that actually requires insane investment in foundational work. It's also a huge change management aspect, changing how all of our business partners, how everybody needs to work. And yet there are other people in the room who are saying, hey, we're going to find $50 million of revenue upside out of this. And, there's CEOs, the thing that they're going to hear in that is, okay, I can go get free money. And they're not going to hear it's hard to get it and you actually have to work your way to get it. There's no free ride. They're hearing free money because that's what their board is asking of them. That is what their stakeholders and their bosses want to see. And so, in this particular situation, I had to explain to the CEO that, this is a little bit like going to Louis Vuitton with $100 gift card and being surprised you can't have the new purse. Like, you don't get something amazing for free. And that's just not how it works. And if there were such a thing as a silver bullet, we would all be packing them. So the first thing is to help them understand what really it is. Because if the more you just sit there and say, this is hard, it's really hard, they stop listening. So I always look at it and say, okay, so if our long-term strategic goal is X, this is what it's going to take to get here. But what are some of the quick wins that we can be doing in parallel? So how do we have a portfolio approach to both give you the confidence that we are going to see the benefits, the long-term benefits that we hope to, by proving it out with some of these quick wins, while in parallel investing in the longer-term strategic bets that we need to make in order to have long-term success. So it comes down to the fact you can't just say no. No doesn't really get you where you want to be. But you also can't just say yes and then not be able to deliver. So how to hear from them, what is it that they need in order to show progress and find ways to problem solve, to come up with the progress in ways that then give that confidence and buy you the credibility to be able to make sure that you hit their long-term goals.
So, hey, have I had to say no to my CEO? Yes, more than once. But there were two specific situations that I wanted to share because I think that those are not uncommon for heads of product, especially in B2B. In the first one, I had to say no to building a feature that our biggest customer wanted and that the CEO had committed to. When you're in a B2B startup, it is very important to secure those very valuable early adopters who will help you define the product, who will be your partners, and who will provide those very important references. And so as a head of product during those early days, you will have to accommodate unique requests from those early adopters, even if you don't think that those are the most important things you could build. But as the company starts growing and you start bringing in hundreds or thousands of customers, you can no longer accommodate every request that every single one of your early adopters had. Because if you do, they will take over your entire roadmap and you will probably miss the market. So this was pretty much the situation we were at. We had this big long-term customer who had a whole list of things they wanted us to do. We had accommodated many of the things they wanted. We had accelerated things in the roadmap to accommodate them. But they had this one request that we knew nobody else in the market wanted. So we were not going to accommodate that one. We were planning to explain to them that that would be something that we might consider in a couple of years. So we were having our quarterly call with the customer, and the CEO decided to join the call. And in the middle of the call, she essentially promised that we would deliver on this feature, and she said that she would get back to them as soon as possible, telling them exactly how quickly we could deliver. Of course, I wasn't very happy. I waited until the end of the call, and then I went to talk to my CEO. And I explained to her, I said, if we were to accommodate this feature, we're going to be pushing out things that are way more important for our sales team, for our prospects, and for most of our existing customers. So once she realized the big trade-offs that we were going to have to make, she agreed. So we had to go back and backtrack with the customer, which is never fun. We were able to accommodate a few things by offering them to do stuff through our professional services team. Not ideal, but at least we were able to not derail the roadmap to accommodate that feature. So I think that for me, the biggest takeaway or the biggest recommendation for heads of product is, first of all, be aware of which ones are those early customers that have this direct line to the CEO. Then make sure that the CEO, while keeping a relationship with those customers, starts delegating to you anything that has to do with conversations about product roadmap and product commitments. And third, be prepared to say no to those customers. And it's not easy, but I do have one recommendation that has worked well for me. And it is bring together in a customer roundtable or a customer council some of those big, important customers. Bring them together and let them talk about their priorities. It is very powerful when one of your customers who has this very unique request starts hearing this, that his or her peers really don't care about it. So then they kind of realize, well, maybe this isn't as important. That's kind of my recommendation there.
If you're the head of product or you're coaching PMs in a small company, they're probably going to have some kind of interaction with the CEO. And especially if your product is your business, he or she will have opinions on it. They might have feedback. It could be informed or not informed. It could be, this happened to me at a kid's birthday party this weekend kind of thing, so fix it. But I do think that it's a really hard thing just to walk in and just say no to a CEO. Okay, if you're 1 year in your career or you're like 10 years in your career. So I almost think that a better way to approach it is to ask questions to your CEO and make sure that you feel comfortable being able to do that. And even asking permission to ask a question opens up a completely different dialogue between two people. So we call it using inquiry over advocacy, and really making sure that you use questions to get to where you need to go. Nobody wants to walk into a room and have somebody tell them no, if you're a CEO or not. If I say to PMs all the time, like, you don't like walking into a room with developers and them telling you no. So why would you do that to somebody else, right? So I say the figurative no to my CEO all the time. And I call it figurative because I use sort of questions to get to a place that he sort of makes the decision that I am looking for him to make. And I realized that, one of the hardest things about being a CEO, and I'm realizing this too as I move up in my career, is the higher you go, the less information you get. And so for you to make a decision, you really do need to rely on the people around you and the subject matter experts throughout the company. So when I'm coaching PMs on how to have these interactions with our CEO, I tell them that you usually have more information than he has. So how are you able to communicate that so that it can get to the outcome that you're expecting? I am lucky, and I realize this, and I've realized this from talking to a lot of my colleagues, that to have a CEO who listens. I understand that not everybody has that benefit. I'll say that's a game changer in terms of how to work, because the time that you can spend managing up can really kill a team. So when we talk about getting the organization on the same page, it's got to actually start top to middle in a lot of ways. Because if you're on different pages about what something could be, or if you have a different point of view of what something should be, then you're going to spend all of your day and your cycles trying to fight that battle. It's less stuff out the door. It's less work getting shit done. It's more annoying political stuff that just people hate and drain people emotionally. So, I've made a personal promise to myself that, even when I leave Ep.8, I will always work for a leader that I believe in and who is passionate about their product but listens to the people around them, because I've just seen it so many times work the other way, and it's been terrible for people. It's terrible for morale. People are checking in and checking out, and it's just really not a high performing organization. So, I think it's important to teach PMs how to feel comfortable in giving them tools to be able to challenge anyone or to ask questions to anyone, regardless of where you are, on the totem pole.
And do you have any examples or stories of like a time when there was maybe a strong belief from the CEO and how you were able to use that inquiry method to get him to make the right decision?
Yeah. I'm thinking about a time earlier this year where we wanted to go a certain way with the product. The product managers and the developers felt really strongly about working on a project. And what they wanted to get out of it, and the KPI that they were solving for, was very customer based. It was definitely what people were saying to us. But our CEO really wanted a different project to be worked on for more of a business KPI. So you always are going to have this like tug between what the business needs and the customers need. And with a finite amount of resources, this is where prioritization gets super hard, right? Mm-hmm. So the CEO was on just a different page than everyone else. And I really needed to sort of get him back to where we were on it. Honestly, for somebody who listens and is amazing as my CEO, like it was tough. And it took almost like a week of me following up and having different meetings and talking about the same topic with him, sometimes with other people, sometimes just the two of us, being like, let's have an honest conversation about this. You and I are not on the same page. That's okay. We're not always going to agree on everything, but we have to get to a point where we can agree that this is a way that we feel comfortable moving forward, because we're sitting on this stack of capacity that's very expensive and no one is moving. So neither one of us want that. So we really need to get to the same point. And it took a lot of conversations. It took a lot of sitting there and saying, okay, well, if that's what you're solving for, that makes sense. But your approach is lacking the thorough thinking of this over here. So what if we did this and this? And I presented different ideas. It was a lot of brainstormy talking rather than like, this is what we should do presentation format, because he wanted a conversation. In the end of the day, he didn't want to just make the decision. He wanted a conversation and he wanted to talk about his idea. Because everybody gets very passionate about their ideas, from a CEO to a product manager to a developer. So again, like not only is it important to have a CEO that listens, it's important to be a product manager that listens, because half the time people really just want to share, well, this is how I'm thinking about it. And I think I got something here. Taking part of what he wanted and incorporating it into what the rest of the team wanted was really the way that we got past it. So we didn't end up going with that idea, but we did take the nugget of what he wanted to solve for and make sure it was part of that product requirements document. And he felt much better about it.
Look, as a product leader, it is inevitable that you're going to encounter a situation where you're trying to reconcile a need and want of your CEO with your very well considered product strategy and plans. And so to navigate that situation, the things that will help you be successful is, first of all, clear company strategy, clear product vision, agreed upon outcome goals, and the stakeholder relationships and support for your product strategy and roadmap. And then one of the tactics that wasn't mentioned that I've always found helpful is when you have these competing needs, to really put forth a presentation of options to be able to accommodate the CEO's request, but also expose those trade-offs. And when you do it, make sure that you're including other members of the leadership team, other CEO direct reports, so that everybody can have a conversation and hear and recognize the pros and cons of what will happen if we take this new input and forego or delay the other things that we had planned on doing. That way, it doesn't become a power struggle between you and the CEO. It's much more around a collaborative and effective leadership team making a hard choice, given the fact that there's only so many things that can be accomplished in any given time frame. So that is the advice that I have that you can use in addition to the great advice that we heard from our other product leaders today. And as always, if you found advice in this episode useful, I'd love to know about it. Please reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter. And if you know other product leaders who you think would benefit from this advice, please be sure to share the Fearless Product Leadership series with them. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can be notified every time we have a new episode about a particularly challenging aspect of being a product leader.